we do have a lore episode to get to.
Hooray!
So, without further ado, Goliath the Dwarf.
All right. Well, this is a very, very special lore episode because this is one where we are going to be diving into big stuff like
Titans.
the closest that we've gotten. Yes,
Like big.
literally
Titans.
Titanic. So yes, this is going to touch on things that people who have seen our previous episodes, particularly ones dedicated to the old gods, there will be aspects that we're retouching on. Previously, because like we're talking like the origins of almost everything here. So this has often been a thing where we were talking about a different topic and we go, okay, so the origins trace themselves back to the Titans in this way, and let's kind of speed through that because we don't want to go off on all these tangents or whatever. Let's get to the main topic here. Well, for this one, all those tangents is the main topic. So just going to have a little check on you guys. Since we have talked about some of this stuff enough, does anyone here remember how the universe began in Azeroth? Anyone?
So Azeroth itself is like a world seed for like a Titan, right?
That is right.
And the bad dudes want to like corrupt it, and the good dudes want to keep it from being corrupted, because that would unleash chaos on not just the realm, but like everywhere.
Exactly. Yep, that's a lot of what we're going to say in a nutshell. But we're going to go into the details of who those players are. And since a lot of this lore comes from the first volume of the Warcraft Chronicle book, I will occasionally just read a few excerpts from it because it's really great the way that they word some things. Nice to have a little storybook experience for me. And the interesting thing is that a lot of this lore was kind of maybe hinted at, or there were some pieces of it over the time of the game, but they did some major reworks and retcons to be able to streamline everything together because when they first started making the game, they weren't very focused on the lore. So in order to pull everything together, they released the book, and this released a lot of information that we didn't know about the Titans and the old gods and everything beforehand. This is the book that really, really got me into lore way back when, actually.
Oh, nice. Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I highly recommend it to anyone who has any curiosity.
Can you show it to us one more time? What's it called?
Yep. It's called the World of Warcraft Chronicle. This is volume 1. There are currently 3 volumes out. The last one leads up to, it ends at the end of the Warcraft Cataclysm expansion. It has all the stuff with Deathwing. There has currently apparently not been enough Warcraft lore in expansions for them to warrant filling a whole volume 4. We'll get there at some point, I hope.
I'm surprised. I thought you were going to say this is volume 1 of 37.
Nope, there's only 3 so far. But
wow.
so
I'm looking at it on Amazon. I want to buy it now. Nice big hardcover illustrated version.
Yep, we got Medivh right on here. It's really cool.
So cool.
But getting to our topic at hand, we have the origins of the universe. Before life began, even before the cosmos took shape, there was light, and there was void. Unfettered by the confines of time and space, the light swelled across all existence in the form of a boundless prismatic sea. Great torrents of living energy fitted through its mirrored depths, their movements conjuring a symphony of joy and hope. The ocean of light was dynamic and ever-shifting, yet as it expanded, some of its energies faded and dimmed, leaving behind pockets of cold nothingness. From the absence of the light in these spaces, a new power coalesced and came to be. This power was the Void, a dark and vampiric force driven to devour all energy, to twist creation inward to feed upon itself. The Void quickly grew and spread its influence, moving against the flooding waves of light. The mounting tension between the two opposing yet inseparable energies eventually ignited a series of catastrophic explosions, rupturing the fabric of creation and birthing a new realm into existence. In that moment, the physical universe was born. So yes, the World of Warcraft universe also had a big bang in it, essentially. And that's from which we get everything. You get like the entire physical space, which is often referred to as the Great Dark Beyond, because that's a cooler fantasy way of than just saying outer space. You also have this kind of parallel realm to it that's called the Twisting Nether. That is this realm of chaotic fell energies, and that is where the demons are initially from. That they just kind of evolved in there. Then you also have things like elemental spirits and shards of light that get thrown out into the universe and becomes creatures known as Naru, which we're familiar with now thanks to the Year of the Griffin expansions with Barrens, Stormwind, Alterac Valley, all of that stuff all had a Naru in it, so you guys know that. But among all of the beings that came into existence, there's this very mysterious group of architects of reality called the First Ones that we know very, very little about, largely because they've only just been introduced into the lore from the Shadowlands expansion. But whoever they are responsible for the creation of the Shadowlands and the beings who rule that, which includes the Primus and other members of the Pantheon of Death, which, if you want more details on that, you can check out the lore episodes that we did back when Murder at Castle Nathria was the expansion last year. But also, it's reasonable to conclude that these mysterious First Ones are also responsible in some way for the creation of the Titans. The Titans are these walking worlds, these world souls that start out like in the core as the spirit of a planet, but can eventually blossom into a fully autonomous, very powerful being of order. They are very focused on arcane energies. That's kind of their lifeblood, and arcane is the magical power of order, as opposed to the fell, which is the magical power of chaos in the universe. So for this reason, Titans are particularly opposed, but also very susceptible to the impacts of fell energies, because it's the antithesis of what they are. Now, Aman'Thul was the very first Titan, and I'll read from the book again. It says, "No one knows when or why the first Titan awoke, but legends hold that his name was Aman'Thul. Though Aman'Thul was alone, he knew in his heart that others of his kind must exist. Thus, he explored the worlds of the great dark beyond, intent on finding more Titans. His quest was arduous and lonely, but was ultimately fulfilling. In time, he discovered other nascent world souls. Aman'Thul lovingly nurtured these newfound kin and roused them from slumber. Those who awakened devoted themselves to his noble search. Aman'Thul and his siblings later became known as the Pantheon. They were benevolent by nature, creatures aligned with order and stability. The Pantheon possessed a natural affinity to the latent magic of the universe. Fully aware of their incredible power, they bound themselves to a code of temperance towards the civilizations they encountered, even those of the unruly elemental spirits." So the Titans' essential goal is that they want to keep up that search. They want to find all the world souls that are around and make sure that they get a chance to be nurtured and grow up and have a chance to live fully as Titans. That's kind of their ultimate goal there. Fortunately, it just so happens that in able to help a world soul to wake up and be nurtured, having life nurtured on the planet is really crucial to the process. So the Titans just kind of go around and they see, is it possible that we could have life and civilizations existing on this planet? We'll just kind of sow the seeds, get things going there, and we don't know if there's a world soul or not. But if it turns out that there is, that's fantastic. That's our goal. If it's not, then, as long as there's no deep set corruption that comes in, we aren't going to destroy these people that we helped to bring up here. They can just, be fine, continuing existing. So that is essentially what the Titans are all about here. And let's see.
Can I ask you a quick question? I'm looking at the
Yes.
art here. It's a really cool picture. And for those of you listening to the audio version, I apologize. You this is one where you want to watch it on YouTube or whatever, because we've got pictures to go along with them. But Looking at this picture on the bottom part of the screen is the Pantheon here, the really cool art by Alex Horley. But so the guy on the very bottom is holding this sword, and the base of the sword, like whatever it's called, where the
Hilt?
Crossguard,
The
hilt,
hilt?
pommel.
yeah, not the part that you hold, but the part that sits on top of your hand, right? Like
Oh yeah,
this.
that's like the crossguard.
Yeah, it looks very much like the staff of origination. And then the blade of it has these runes in it, almost like the Lich King's like Frostmourne. Is there something like there, or is it just like the style? Am I just reading into it too much?
Well, runes themselves are kind of a language of the universe in a sense. So the runes connected to the Lich King and all of that stuff are actually the language of domination, which was invented by the Primus.
Right, yeah, I
As a way
remember.
to, try to imprison the
Yeah.
jailer. Yes, again, that's a whole other story right there. But essentially, runes can be used for a variety of different sorts of things, from my understanding. There's not a ton of clarification of their exact, exhaustive list of what they can and can't do in the lore. Um, but regarding the similarity of the hilt of the sword to the Staff of Origination, that would make sense since the Staff of Origination is a Titan artifact. So it would make sense they would have similar art styles in their design.
I love it if the runes, like, there was this trend in the early 2000s that you go and get like a Japanese kanji tattoo, but you don't know what it means, and so when and then you find out later that it says like barbecue chicken on your shoulder or something, right? So you got like runes there, but he doesn't know what it means. It says like Kentucky Fried Poulet on it, right?
This is not a sword.
Sorry, I didn't mean to derail the show.
That's all right. But yeah, so, and we'll go into exactly who each member of the Pantheon was in a little bit right here. But first, we have a couple other players in the game to introduce. Ones who we've touched on before. We've had 3 episodes so far, and we'll have a 4th covering the final one, but the Old Gods. And we have the Void, which we mentioned at the very start here. This is where the Old Gods come from. They are essentially kind of trapped in their own realm of void outside of reality, but they really want to get into the physical universe. I shall again read from the book. From the moment the cosmos came to be, dark spirits within the void sought to twist reality into a realm of eternal torment. These entities were known as the Void Lords, and they had long watched the Pantheon and their journey from world to world. Envious of their power, the Void Lord sought to corrupt one of the world-shaping titans into an instrument of the will. To achieve this goal, the Void Lord struggled to manifest in the physical universe. As they did so, their energy seeped into reality, warping some of the unsuspecting denizens of creation. Yet the noble and virtuous titans proved impervious to this insidious corruption. Eventually, the Void Lords moved to exert their influence over a titan in its most vulnerable state, before it had awakened. The Void Lords did not know which worlds contained slumbering Titan spirits. Thus they pooled their power and hurled dark creatures throughout the physical universe, hoping some would smash into a world's soul. An unknown number of the Void Lords' creations hurtled through the great dark. They contaminated mortal worlds and everything else they touched in their blind search for an Asian Titan. In time, these wicked beings would come to be known as the Old Gods. And the Titans knew absolutely nothing about this. They didn't know about the Old Gods. They didn't know about the Void Lords. They were starting to discover that demons were a thing that existed, and they were a problem that needed to be solved there, which is where their champion Sargeras came in. Sargeras was the one who was going around and protecting all the worlds that they were helping to seed with life, and especially fighting against the demons. But one day, he ran into a time where the Old Gods and the Void Lords succeeded, because they had actually managed to smash into a planet with a world soul. And this was really, really far along corruption here. And This freaked out Sargeras so much, he realized the devastating power that this Titan was corrupted to the void could do if it were emerged, that he just cleaved the planet in two. He killed it right then and there. And this was controversial, to say the least, among the rest of the members of the Pantheon. They were like, there has to be another way. Why did you do that? That was really stupid of you, Sargeras. You should have consulted with us. And he's like, you needed to be there. You would have understood. I don't know why I'm slipping into my dwarf voice for Sargeras there. But yeah, and so...
Definitely bigger than a dwarf.
Yes. Much.
A little bit.
2 dwarfs.
Again, walking dwarf.
More than 2.
Sargeras is 2 dwarves in the trench coat. That's the new retcon plot twist in the next expansion. No. So this he kind kind of separated himself from the Pantheon, went his own way, and it's going to create a lot of problems in the future here. But in the meantime, let's kind of go over who the rest of the Pantheon is here. You have Amenthul, who we've talked about already. He is the High Father of the Pantheon, and he has particular power over time. We have Sargeras, who is the Defender. He's largely he's just like really strong and a good fighter. There's no particular magic that he controls at this point in the story. You have Agrimar, who is our hunter titan, and he is the lieutenant of Sargeras. So very much, he's just he's like a really good fighter. I mean, like you have innate control over amazing magics just by being a Titan, but in terms of like their specialty, that's kind of what he does. He's Sargeras' sidekick. He's the Robin to his Batman, essentially. You also have Eonar the Lifebinder, our Druid Titan, who has a big focus on nature and bringing about organic life, plants and animals, and all of that. Khazgaroth is the Shaper and Forger of Worlds. He is our Warrior Titan. And fun fact is that the dwarven home of Khazmodan is named after Khazgaroth.
For Khazmodan.
Precisely. We have our Mage Titan, Norganon, who is the Keeper of Celestial Magics and Lore. Really, that there was no other class that they could have put him in, because he is the ultimate magic guy, the ultimate arcane magic guy. It's not quite so much the way that he's been interpreted for the Hearthstone mechanics, as in like exploring every single part of magic. For example, as I said, Titans don't really do Fel, so he would not be doing that. He would not be doing shadow magic so much. But in terms of representing him as like the ultimate spell weaver, it is very accurate in that way. And then you have Golganoth, who is the Lord of Skies and Roaring Oceans. He's kind of like your, massive Thor and Poseidon guy combined right there. So yeah, these are kind of the basics. Hearthstone, of course, decided that we're already stretching things pretty thin right here with, maybe including characters who aren't technically Titans as our Titans, because we need one for each class. So they decided to make their own Titan, Armistice, who they kind of were very clever about by saying that this Titan just kind of disappeared when Sargeras departed from the other Titans. So it doesn't technically contradict any lore that we have, because it's saying that she left before the stories that we know literally got started. So it's technically possible that she could be canonized if the writers of the official World of Warcraft lore decided to do so. I mean, they have done that with, Tortolans, which were a Hearthstone creation, but then became an official World of Warcraft race, although with a different origin and lore and whatnot. But you never know. So yeah, those are the players in the Pantheon. And now we are getting to Azeroth itself. We've been just out in the Great Dark Beyond right now, just kind of planet hopping, but now we're focusing on the main world, and in a sense, the main character of all of this. So again, we have a situation where old gods slam into Azeroth. This one happens to have a world soul, and Azeroth is covered by these chaotic elemental creatures. On other worlds, elements are a lot more peaceful because there is this fifth element of spirit, which is actually what the monk class uses as their source of magic in World of Warcraft. And Blizzard, please give us monks in Hearthstone, please, please, please. And the monks refer to it as key and whatnot. But because the world soul of Azeroth is so powerful, like we're talking, has the potential to become the most powerful Titan of them all. Potentially, it's never been officially stated, but from the big deal it's made, could eclipse any of them, even Amin-Thul or the power of Sargeras or whatnot. So we just don't know. But so the spirit is kind of like all being absorbed as almost nutrients for the growing world soul, which means there isn't very much on the surface, and so it's not pacifying the elements, and they're just violent and crazy and chaotic. And so you have our old friends Neptulon, Alakir, Ragnaros, and the one elemental Lord Hearthstone still hasn't added in to date, Therazon the Stone Mother. And they are constantly warring it among themselves. But then the old gods come crashing down, and for once, the elemental lords actually start to work together to try to fend off these invaders. But they are not strong enough, and their wills are overpowered by the old gods, and they become the biggest lieutenants, like the head enforcers of what becomes known as the Black Empire. Which is the time when the old gods completely rule Azeroth. You have these, massive cities that are constructed around their huge bodies, and they secrete their various minions that we've talked about in previous episodes. You have the faceless, and you have the various different insectoid ones, all descended from this one called the Akir. And this is the state that Azeroth is in when the Titans finally stumble upon a new sibling. And they see that it is a bad situation here. And does anyone remember what their solution was for dealing with the old gods?
I remember with I think it was Yogg Saron. Didn't they rip him out and throw him into space?
Yasharaj.
Oh, Yasharaj.
Yes. But that
they imprisoned him, right? Because the one in Azeroth, it was if we just come destroy it, then we risk destroying the world soul also. So we need to imprison it instead. And so they build these prisons around the old gods, but because they're insidious, right? They seep out a little bit and like you said, oh, what a gross word, excrete their influence.
Yes. So the thing is that the Titans themselves are so big and powerful. To utilize the analogy that I've made previously, it's like if you build a sandbox, if you go trying to stamp out some ants that are crawling around in your sandcastle that you've built there, you're probably just going to knock down the sandcastle. But what if you could have little microscopic army that answers to you that's about the size of the ants that can go in and fight them or something? Then that is essentially what the Titans did. They created a personal army that they sculpted out of stone and metal. Various different shapes and forms. We'll get into those a bit later. And the most powerful of them, they elevated to the position of Titan Keeper and imbued with various elements of their own power. I shall now find another excerpt from the book here. One moment. So each of them is essentially imbued with with powers from a certain Titan. Now, it's not a correlation of one Titan, one keeper here. This is actually kind of a split between a couple of them. Actually, I'm just going to briefly consult the Wikipedia list because I think it would be a bit quicker here. Yes. Okay. So you have Arden Caius, who was empowered by Khazgoroth, and he is also known as the Ancient Stone Watcher. Ionar gave a portion of her power to Freya, so she is again kind of the nature lady. Golganath gave some of his power to Hodir, so he is also known as the champion of winter. He's a champion of lots of the Titan stuff. Actually, he's father of giants in the card.
Hodor. They made a character in Game of Thrones.
Norcanon gave his magical abilities to two different keepers. One was Loken, and the other was Mimron. So they became great spell weavers themselves. Amenthul gave portions of his power to Odin and Ra. Golganath also gave some power to Thorim. So he's well, he's Thor. He's the guy who brings around thunder and lightning and stuff. And Agramar gave some of his power to Tyr. Now, I have to wonder if Sargeras had not left them at this point. I wonder who he would have imparted some power to, or if there would have been another keeper, or if it would have been switched around. It's interesting to think about. But he left the party too soon. He missed his name being drawn, so he didn't get the prize there. But yeah. So those are essentially who the keepers are right there. And of course, we have all this gorgeous signature art that's been included. Thorim also has some cool card connections because he has this connection with these dragons. These proto-drakes, actually, at this point, dragons as we know them did not exist. And one of them is actually a legendary from Descent of Dragons, the Hunter legendary. That was his personal proto-drake mount. And a new card that we have, this epic called Razor Scale, is actually a reference to because you meet them in Wrath of the Lich King, and that proto-drake is eventually killed and raised into undeath. And so Razor Scale is the name of it as an undead. So
that's cool.
It's a fun little reference in one of the new cards right there. But yes, alluding back to what Nate was saying, the Titan Keepers were certainly doing their darndest and leading all their Titan Forged armies to war against the old gods and all of their minions. But Yasharaj was a little too big, too powerful, and was essentially they were no match for him. So that was the time when Amenthul decided, okay, we need to handle this personally, reached down, tears Yasharaj into pieces in the air, bits of his guts spill around everywhere. That's where the shock come from. And then it leaves this big gaping hole in the world, which is a reminder of why they were not going to do this in the first place. This is where, as I said, arcane energy is essentially the blood of a Titan, and so it's just bleeding out right here. And this is where the Well of Eternity comes from. They decide to kind of patch it up by putting a big lake over it. Mm-hmm. And so you get all this arcane magically infused power, and that of course will later in history be where the great Night Elf civilizations take place. You get all the stuff with Queen Ajara, and if you want more information on that, you can go back to the episodes that we talked about from Voyage to the Sunken City. Like I said, we're touching on a lot of stuff that we've briefly mentioned in the past here.
So is that the Well of Eternity? Where they rip him out and that's what it turns into? Okay.
Yeah, the Well of Eternity is the big band-aid from the wound of ripping him out there.
Now, what are they so once he pulls him out, I love the picture here because Yasharaj looks so small, right? Out in outer space, is ripped him out of the ground. And what does he do with it? Just fling him off somewhere? Or does he shred it, ripped him apart into little pieces?
Basically shredded. That's why parts of him just kind of fall everywhere.
Yeah, they should have done that, like, not where they would just land all over the earth and like, or over
Yeah.
Azeroth and like, make little monsters and stuff everywhere.
Yeah. They actually had his. They found his heart and locked it away in a vault so that the Titan Keepers could study it because they needed to be able to understand more about them in order to be able to combat and neutralize them better. Because, like for the others, as we've said, they were just they just had to imprison them because they realized we cannot do this again. And this isn't just like a physical prison. You have like enchantments to try to nullify their magical influence that they can't influence things beyond. Over the millennia and eons, those would wane a little bit, and so over time, the old gods will eventually get more influence of things outside. But thankfully, for now, at this point in the story, that is not the case. We also have the ordering of Azeroth. So after everything is taken care of, you essentially have no more old gods around, or everything has been driven underground that served them, and you have a planet to get in order now, just like you do any other. So this is the part where we have kind of the shaping of everything. So you have like the giants who are going to, carve out the seas and build the mountains and all of that sort of stuff. And the Titans actually gifted special tools called the Pillars of Creation to the Titan Keepers to help them with all of this. Things like the Tidestone of Golganeth, the Aegis of Agrimar, the Hammer of Cosmodan, the Eye of Aman'Thul, and those are basically things that they use to help build the world. They'd eventually kind of get lost later on in history and become relevant in future Warcraft expansions. And I think now is about the time to talk about the Forges and the Dream. So, what do you guys know about the Emerald Dream? It's we've had Emerald Dream cards in Hearthstone for ever since Ysera was a card, which is right at
Ysera.
the
That's
start.
what I know. Ysera.
Right, same, yeah.
So the Emerald Dream is essentially like a blueprint for all the wildlife on Azeroth. Um, it says here in the book that some believe that Freya wove the Emerald Dream into being from nothing. Others claim that this strange place had always existed in some form, a dream born from Azeroth's slumbering world soul. It is said that Freya tapped into this realm and molded what would become known as the Emerald Dream as a way to commune with a nascent titan. So essentially, this is a way that it's kind of like almost like a computer program in the sense, this ever shifting kind of like magical algorithm of how nature will evolve on Azeroth. Assuming that there's no, civilizations that interfere in any sense. That is why druids have such a strong connection to it. When they sleep and go to the Emerald Dream, this is the place where they kind of really where nature magic is at its absolute strongest here. And this is also the time where the wild gods come in, these nature spirits that just kind of resulted from all this nature magic. Ysera essentially befriended them, kind of helped them get a special place called Mount Hyjal that becomes a bit of a stronghold for them. And all of that, again, will be major players in future Night Elf cultures in the many millennia when that actually happens. And then, let's see. Yes, the forges, of course. So we have two forges that are made in order to help the world soul of Azeroth reach its fullest potential. I shall again find a spot in the book here. Yes. One moment. With the wound healed, the Keeper sought to strengthen Azeroth's nascent world soul and stabilize its life force. To do so, Arden, Cadus, and Mimiron combined their powers to craft the Forge of Wills and the Forge of Origination. These two extraordinary machines would work in tandem, infusing Azeroth's slumbering spirit with cosmic energies. The Forge of Wills would be embedded in the northern reaches of the world, and would shape the world soul's budding sentience. The Forge of Origination would be instilled in the southern reaches of Azeroth. It would regulate the rhythms of the deep earth and fortify the world soul's form. After the two machines were constructed, the Keepers went to work. Odin oversaw efforts to install the Forge of Wills in a vast northern mountain range that would become known as the Storm Peaks. The Pantheon appointed Odin the prime designate for his valorous deeds in the war with the old gods. The task of watching over Yogg-Saron's prison and maintaining the Forge of Wills would fall to him. Odin and the other keepers immediately began building the great fortress of Ulduar to serve as the main bastion of the Titan forged on Azeroth. The fortress would house not only Yogg-Saron's prison, but also the Forge of Wills and other machineries of the Keeper's devising. The Forge of Wills also served another purpose. It could draw on the life essence of Azeroth itself, giving shape and sentience to creatures of living stone and metal, not only giants, but other types of Titanforged as well. This new generation of Titanforged would help the Keepers bring order to the world. As the Forge of Wills churned out these new Titanforged, High Keeper Ra led an expedition to install the Forge of Origination in the south. He was accompanied by a number of stone-skinned creatures recently wrought from the Forge of Wills, the Ambusath Giants, the Leaner Tolvir, and the Indomitable Mogu. And it is at this point that we get to talk about all the cool different Titanforged races that are out there. So, do you guys have any particular favorites from our list that you want to tackle first?
I like the Tolvir because they're like cat creatures, and that seems super cool to me.
Yeah. So as I said, Tolvir are one of the kind of new generations that are made out of the Forge of Wills. They are essentially meant to help guard everything. That's the role of a lot of these. Some of them have specific crafting and machinery maintenance type of jobs, but the Tolvir, as you said, they're kind of cat-like in nature. But that's not what they initially look like. That's only after the Curse of Flesh happens, which we'll get to a little bit later. But so initially we have the full stony versions of them, which we have our image right here of the Tolvir Stone Shaper. Then we also have, as we said, the Mogu, and we have the Vicruel, who are also very much the warrior-like, and all of these start out as stone. Basically, warriors who serve various different goals of like guarding an old god prison or helping to, forge ahead a new path in the wilderness or whatnot, all of that sort of thing. Then, of course, we have the Earthen, who are my personal favorite because they are the ancestors of dwarves. Go figure.
I like the mechagnomes. Those are my favorite.
Yes, the mechagnomes are they are very. They're designed to maintain the machineries of the Titans' designs there, like the Forges of Wills and Origination. The Earthen are specifically meant to be tunneling beneath the earth and whatnot. The Trogs are actually the initial design for the Earthen, but they were a bit too ambitious. It was too complex, and so instead of these beautiful, useful creatures, you get this complete mess. So the Trogs are basically
stupid. That's what I was thinking
are
of.
the Titans' failed laboratory experiment. But they couldn't bear to just destroy them, so they decided to just put them into hibernation and just hope they never woke up. But they woke up at some point, so yeah, might have been better if you just got rid of them.
It's like my favorite voice line in the whole game.
Yeah. And let's see. Then the giants, we've they were some of the first ones there. Right there, we have lots of different types of giants. So we have storm giants, mountain giants, fire giants. And they're kind of some of the rawest, most primordial looking and functioning and temperament type versions of Titan Forged. Let's see. Are there any that we are forgetting right now?
Mountain giant.
Let's see. Nope, I think that covers, yes, that covers all of the basic original Titan Forged races. There are, others that pop up in lore a bit later on. Like, for example, Tyr later on would make his own particular Titan Forge that would help to interact with dragons and whatnot. But at this point in the story, these are the core ones that had been created. And let's talk a little bit more about the Forge of Origination, because this thing that Ra is installing in the south, it has another purpose. If
It's a Stargate.
not quite, although it is connected with a starry guy, Agalon the Observer. Um, so the whole thing here is that the Titans are aware that things could go haywire again. Yule gods could potentially return, and everything could get so corrupted that it's bad again. So the Forge of Origination basically wipes the slate clean if it's activated. It
Yeah, I was
purges
gonna say, wasn't
all life.
Yeah, wasn't it like
from
it's like a big
Azeroth.
old self-destruct switch, right?
Yes, it's a reset switch in a sense, which is only to be done at the when there's no other hope. But there's it seems callous, but the Titans consider it necessary if the old gods, it's kind of like a more controlled version of what Sargeras was all about, which again we'll get to in just a moment. But Sargeras's whole philosophy ended up being it is better for there to be no life in the universe than for there to be void corrupted life where everything is miserable. Because if we purge everything, there's a chance it can regrow. This is kind of like a more contained and slightly more reasonable version of that on this one planet. Because this would not kill the world soul. It would just purge the surface, essentially. So yeah, that is... and Algalon is what you call a constellar. These starry beings who inhabit the great dark beyond, who essentially is just employed by the Titans to constantly be doing surveillance duty, and if things got bad enough or they got a special signal, then he would
Push
just
the
like
big red button.
exactly. Yep, he would. Man, when you phrase it as big red button, it terrifies me thinking of what Dr. Boom would do if he got a hold of any of this stuff.
Self-destruct?
Probably. He's not afraid to do that as long as it's a beautiful explosion
I
there.
hate that fuse thing.
Yes. Now we are just about yes. So at this point, the Titans have done everything they can to set things up. Essentially, Azeroth is ordered. Everything's all set up. Everything is clean, and so they decide that it's time for them to go out and find more Titans because they've done everything they can for this world. There might be others that still need their help out there, so they entrust everything to the keepers, saying, we might be back someday. Just do a good job here. Keep an eye out for everything. Take care of our planet here, and or our sibling, more like for them. And then they depart, and that's the last time that the keepers ever got to see him, because at this point, this is where Sargeras kind of goes overboard because he decides.
You mean cutting a planet in half wasn't overboard?
It was. But not nearly as overboard as deciding that all life in the universe needs to be purged. And he realizes, I'm going to need an army for this. Where can I get an army? I know. I have this demi-plane that I have literally been locking every single demon in that I have conquered in the past. I'm just going to go and open that up with my big old sword and
what can go wrong?
Yes.
From the void I come.
Well, a lot went wrong, actually, because when it had become so filled with this fell energy from all the Titans in there, it's kind of like how when you have compost, all the decomposing creates so much heat, but in this case, it's like so many demons in this little demi-plane that Sargeras created that's just so full of fell energy that when he uses his sword to just kind of open up a Terran reality, because he can do that, apparently. It just like explodes all
Demon
over
farts.
himself.
He just opened it too soon. They were still composting the demons.
Something like that. It says that to thwart the Void Lords, Sargeras unleashed his new army, his burning legion, upon the innumerable worlds of the Great Dark. Never before had the forces of evil been united in such numbers. Sargeras wielded enough power to make disobedience all but unthinkable. None would dream of challenging him, but more importantly, his minions grew to delight in their role as agents of extinction. So the reason that Sargeras looks the way he does now is because it's essentially that supervillain origin story of like guy gets in a lab accident that scars his face or something. All of this exploding Fel energy just completely warped him and gave him powers over Fel, and that is why he became so much more powerful than a lot of the other Titans. So he's going out and his, scouring worlds of life and corrupting their denizens into more demons to join his army with fell magic and all of that stuff. And eventually, his old buddy Agrimar catches up and he's like, dude, what gives? And they have arguments and neither can persuade the other that they're right. And so Akramar goes back and says, hey, Pantheon, I think I need some backup here. Maybe you can convince him. But they can't. They do, that their trump card is trying to tell him, hey, we found this world called Azeroth. And it's a really powerful Titan here, and it could defeat all the Void Lords and stuff. Because by now, they know that the Void Lords exist, thanks to Sargeras' earlier encounter. But he's still not convinced. And so ultimately, that was a mistake, letting him know that this very powerful Titan still existed, because he is going to be spending the entire rest of the story of his spare time trying to find where this is, which will eventually lead to World of Warcraft game content as we fight them, and the Great War of the Ancients, which we've talked about a few different times. So all of that happens. He is so powerful that he shatters all of their forms with his fell magic. Because remember, as beings of arcane and order, they are very susceptible to this power of chaos. However, Norganon is able to weave a spell so powerful that it protects their souls from fading into oblivion. So they're just kind of drifting out through the cosmos for the time being. Meanwhile, back on Azeroth, we have we're seeing how things are going without the Titans around, and not
Not so good.
great. No, because we have this guy that you may have heard of, named Galacrond. Who? Oh, let's just recap. What do you guys remember about Galacrond?
Well, this was before the dragons were like dragons, right? They were proto
That's
drakes.
correct. The dragons actually evolved from elements who managed to sneak out of the elemental planes, which, by the way, are, contrary to what you might think, are not organic things that like surround Azeroth normally. The elemental planes were actually created by the Titan Forged in order to contain them as prisons, because if you kill them, they'll just come back. They're bound to Azeroth. But some of the elements managed to sneak out of the magical barriers of the planes and just kind of ended up evolving into half element, half flesh creatures. And that's where draconic power originally comes from. It's elemental in nature.
So did this happen after, because Galakrond was corrupted by the old gods, yeah?
No, actually. This is one thing that the old gods can't be blamed for. They corrupted a lot of things, but Galakrond just kept eating a bunch of stuff.
He was always hungry all the time.
Yes.
I thought that was because of
kept
the
on
old
growing.
gods for some
There's
reason.
something I read. It said Galakron's mutations were caused by Yogg-Saron corrupting the waters which he drank from.
Interesting. That is not one source that I had seen, actually. But it says in the Chronicle book here, let's see, it says that
But-
Galakrond possessed a preternatural cunning that made him an exceptional hunter. In time, Galakrond came to dominate the most sought-after hunting grounds in northern Kalimdor. and nothing could sate his craving.
Now, wasn't
So
he just
terrible-
eating everything, right?
Yes. So terrible was
He's
his
Pac-Man.
hunger that Galakrond began feasting on other proto-dragons, even the corpses of the dead. Devouring fallen proto-dragons eventually warped Galakrond's mind and body with a necrotic affliction. Misshapen limbs and dozens of eyes sprouted around his gargantuan form. Death energies wafted off Galakrond's jagged hide, reanimating dead matter. These necrotic powers were infused into Galakrond's victim, and they rose from the dead as mindless abominations. Are you guys familiar with the folklore of the Wendigo by chance?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean,
I think it
that's
is
what happens
from-
when you eat human flesh, right? Then you turn into the
Exact-
Wendigo, and you don't want anything
Precisely.
else except human flesh, and it turns you into kind of a monster. And
And so Galakrond is essentially the dragon version of the Wendigo. It's like all that the Chronicle says here is that he shouldn't have been eating other proto dragons, but he did, and that messed with death magic somehow, and just got like really big, really crazy. But the thing is that most of the Titan keepers weren't really paying attention to Galakrond. Only Tyr noticed that, hey, you see this thing that's constantly eating everything and corrupting it with undeath somehow and keeps growing every time he does that? Maybe, just maybe, we should actually do something about this, guys. But they were busy with their own matters mostly, so Tyr went and recruited what would be known as the Dragon Aspects. Malygos, Alexstrasza, Ysera, Nazdormu, and Neltharion, later known as Deathwing. And they, together with Tyr, managed to best Galakrond, took him down with the power of teamwork. And but actually, in that fight, Galakrond bit off Tyr's hand, and because is all this necrotic energy stuff going on, he couldn't get it back very easily. So instead, he had a new hand made out of silver. That was actually forged by our demon hunter card, Jotun the Eternal. He was a forger, and he actually helped to create Tyr's silver hand there.
Sheep, how do you pronounce that? Jotun.
That. Oh. Jotun.
Jotun. Oh, okay. Jotun the Eternal. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
I assume that's how you say it, because that's how you pronounce, because Jotun
like
is
Jotunheim.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep. You know your Norse mythology there, which a lot of this Titan stuff is based on, and so I base the pronunciation based off of it if I have nothing to contradict. But yes, so that's where he comes in, and that's almost all of the main legendaries that we have in the set so far. But we're missing one, Helia. Where does she come in? She is actually a Titan sorceress, so she has like amazing power over magic and whatnot as well. Although technically not a keeper, she is very powerful. She is actually the one who created the elemental planes in the first place and managed to be able to bind all of them outside of the world. That gives you a sense of just how powerful this lady is.
She's like a giant sea witch. I didn't realize how, like, until I was looking at the pictures, but like the bottom half is like octopus and she's huge. Like you don't, this picture of her on the golden or the diamond card, like in the very forefront, that little shape there, that's like a person.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, no.
Titan Watchers are massive.
That's funny.
She didn't start out as the Sea Witch. She started out just like all the other Titan Forge, and she, like I said, she was very, very helpful. Now, it just so happens that when the Titans, the Titan Forge decided to reward the dragons who bested Galakrond and make them guardians of Azeroth, they infused them with their various powers. You have Freya, who infused Ysera and Alexstrasza with various aspects of life. You have the power of Amenthul being channeled through Ra for Naz Dormu, who is, the guardian of time and whatnot. You have Kazgroth's power being channeled into Neltharion, because he is, all about the earth. And then you have Mimron and Loken, who are helping to channel Norganon's powers for Malagos, because he is the spell weaver. Now, all of the other Titan Keepers think that this is a great idea. Odin does not. Odin thinks that these dragons that you're placing so much faith in are going to utterly fail in protecting Azeroth. They are not strong enough. I don't know why you entrusted creatures like this with power. Us Titans, us Titan Forged, we're the only ones who can be trusted with this burden, with this duty. And so he wants to build this like special elite army of Titan Forged in order to do the duty that he thinks that this is what we need to do, that these will be the defenders, the guardians of Azeroth, not these dragons that you've created here. But none of the others want to join him on his project, so he's just like, fine, I'll do it myself. And his idea is that he is going to be able to get the souls of the greatest Val-Ajar, that's what he calls them, the greatest Titan Forge who die in battle, and he essentially creates Valhalla. He's Odin. So he actually studies the magic of the Shadowlands, and he actually trades his eye to the jailer for the ability to have souls ferried from the Shadowlands back to where he builds new storm-forged bodies for them, as it's phrased in the book. And so, yeah, the whole Eye of the Jailer thing, which we have a card that's kind of like that all-seeing eye thing from the Mon Order, that is actually Odin's eye. Because, of course, reflecting the original Norse mythology, where Odin traded his eye for all the wisdom in the world, this is the Warcraft version of that. Now, in order to be able to ferry these souls from the Shadowlands, Odin needs essentially spirit messengers who can traverse them. They are called Valkyr. And while they're very useful in this regard, the thing is that once you're a Valkyr, you're stuck as a Valkyr for all of eternity. And so no one's really volunteering for the position. Now, Odin has created this section of the Titan Fortress of Ulduar called the Halls of Valor, and he actually got Helia to be able to tear it away and just like have it floating up in the sky, so that since the other keepers didn't want to be involved with this project, he's just like, fine, then you don't get to come to my clubhouse. And this is a place for me and my elite warriors only. And she was actually kind of like an adopted daughter to him. They had like a really strong bond, but she was, being a bit more reasonable and saying, hey, you maybe this whole this Valkyr thing isn't such a great idea, but Odin is very, very stubborn by nature. He's very fixated on everyone proving themselves again and again through combats. That's constantly what he's asking player characters to do in World of Warcraft, is like, oh, you must prove your valor again for me to give you this or that boon or something. But he's also just very convinced that he is right. Because after all, I'm the prime designate. I'm the one who was put in charge of all of you guys. So, therefore, what I say, everyone should listen to, right? And no one's listening to me, so I'm going to take matters in my own hands. He literally forcibly transforms Helia into the first Valkyr. Like this is very non-consensual interaction right here, and she's bound to his will, so she has to serve him, but she, hates him for doing that to her, and that is going to...
Is the card art before or after this transformation?
The card art is before her transformation. You can see she she has her hair back in a bit of a neater braid. She's kind of wearing more typical Titan type of things. She doesn't have the crazy wings and octopus stuff that she gets later on. And she doesn't look like that quite yet, but because that's going to come in later. But right now, she's essentially she's a Valkyr like any other, just forced to ferry the souls from the Shadowlands over to Odin's Halls of Valor, and she's not enjoying that. Um, and at this point, then we are going to get a romantic drama, a love triangle that is going to disrupt everything. I don't know if you guys remember or not from our talk about the Yogg-Saron story, but does anyone remember what was going on? What happened with Loken here?
I believe there is some betrayal involved.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, and didn't he kill Thor's wife or something like that?
There you go. There you go. Thorim, to be specific. But yes, they didn't
That's
mess with the names
up
too much. Yes. So essentially, what happened is that. So remember, we're going back to the Titans. They are kind of their spirits are drifting throughout the cosmos, and they feel the need to try to find physical bodies to latch onto. Otherwise, they might just dissipate into nothing, even with Norgannon's spell work helping them out. And so they decide, hey, we made those keepers back on Azeroth. Let's see if, if maybe touching base with them might help. So essentially what happens is they just kind of slam into the keepers, and the keepers are suddenly overwhelmed with these visions and greater power from the Titans, and they have no idea what's going on. They sense that they've been gifted more power, but they don't know that this is like some of the last remnants of the Titans that are part of them now. And so they're calling out to the Titans saying, hey, what's going on? But obviously the Titans aren't answering. And this is just really confusing and troubling to them. And they become like very uneasy about a lot of stuff. Loken, in particular, is the most disturbed of all of these things. And Yogg-Saron, from his prison, senses that and starts playing on it, like giving him like horrible nightmares about things or whatnot. To confide, Loken starts talking to Thorm's wife, Sif, who is one of our mage cards. And they become closer than you should. Starts out just as a confidant, but then you get like a forbidden romance in there. And that's something Yogg-Saron really latches on, and he twists that into a dangerous obsession. It's not just like, like a chivalrous love crush, like, a knight who is pledging his love to like a married noble lady or something. No, this becomes like, I want you to publicly say that you're not with Orm anymore, and we're all together now. But Sif is like, no, that would shatter everyone's unity here. The keepers need to be united. No one can know about this. And Loken becomes so obsessed, prompted by Yogg-Saron's twisting his emotions subtly, that he lashes out and kills his lover. In just a fit of emotion right there. And then he's like, holy cow, what have I done? And everything that Loken does from this is all about covering up his actions. Because he's terrified of consequences. And so he does worse things, which would have even worse consequences. And so he tries to cover those up.
Just digging deeper and deeper.
Yes. This is like one of those cautionary tales that you tell kids to just tell the truth right away.
Yeah.
I tell our new employees that all the time.
Do they listen?
Not always.
Yogg-Saron actually creates an illusion of Sif's spirit to manipulate Loken at first, so Loken thinks that Sif is telling him, holy cow, you need to cover this up. I know, tell Thorm that the giants killed me. And so Thorm goes into this big rage and this massive war against the giants out of misguided vengeance for, the ones who he thinks killed his wife. We have this awesome art from Chronicle of him discovering his wife's body and just like having this massive meltdown. It is amazing art there. And again, Sif, fake Sif, who's really Yogg-Saron, keeps guiding Loken deeper and deeper, saying like, "Hey, you know what you should do is you should reprimand your brother for starting an unnecessary war, and say that Sif would be ashamed of him if he did that." And that really hits Storm hard, and he gets depressed for eons and millennia. He just kind of goes off into the waste and mopes on top of a mountain until a player character is able to convince him to get out of his stupor. So that's a really, really, really long time. He's just sitting up there feeling sorry for himself.
Man, him and Illidan should hang out.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I bet they would have some interesting conversations.
Does he turn into like like Fat Thor?
No, that would be pretty funny though. But
you know what I'm talking about, or no?
From Endgame, yeah.
When he gets all depressed and
yes, it's a similar thing that he's just all depressed and stuff. But I mean, maybe it's because he's made of metal and metal can't gain weight. But yeah, if he were a flesh and blood creature, that very much could have happened. And that this just continues. Once Loken finally realizes that it's Yogg-Saron, it's been twisted this whole time. It is like too late. That just snaps him. He's like, "Oh man, I've been serving an old god this whole time. No one must know. I must embrace the old god's power to ensure that no one knows that I've been embracing an old god's power." Yeah, like it's very much he's just digging himself deeper and deeper into this hole. To the extent that he just ends up. Well, this is where Helia comes back in, because Loken realizes that he needs to make sure that if the Titans ever come back, they never know what he's done. Now, there are these artifacts called the Discs of Norganon that have been created that automatically have a record of everything that happens on the Earth, on Azeroth. And he wants to make sure that no one can ever show those to the Titans if they ever come back. So he needs to get rid of all of his fellow keepers. Odin and his massive army are a bit of a problem in the whole Halls of Valor thing. So Loken manages to find Helia. He says, "Hey, if you are able to seal away the Halls of Valor so that Odin and his army can't get out, they're just floating in the sky for all eternity, then I'll free you from him." And she's like, "Hell yeah." Sorry, I just had to do that. Because she's been nursing for millennia at this point. They're kind of like far out space things. The life of a keeper is much longer than any of our own. Practically immortal, since they can't really die of old age, being made of metal and whatnot. So she's been nursing her hatred for a long time, and she's like, "Yes, I will do that." And so that is why she is now like free of Odin, and Odin can't get out. And this is the point where she becomes like the sea witch that we see. She kind of assumes, rather than Odin getting the souls of the Valkyr and other Titanforge that were joining his army, she's kind of dragging them down into her own little hell, this Helya hell. And they become known as the Cavaldir. We have a few cards of them as well, actually. This is where a lot of the Viking-esque characters come from. And so she has her own little afterlife that she ends up pulling them down into. And that's why she has the whole Sea Witch aspect going on there. Now let's see. What are we talking about next? Oh, yes. We have the Winterscorn War and a fire giant who is one of our free reward track legendaries in the Titans expansion, Ignis. Ignis is a bit violent by nature. You have he has a partner actually too, named Volcon, and they are they're lieutenants of Loken, who at this point is controlling everything. He's managed to overpower pretty much all the other keepers. It's only Tyr and Ard and Cadis and one or two of their lesser friends who have managed to evade his power for now. Ra is still down over in the south. He doesn't really know what's going on. And so most of the other keepers are out of action. And in order to help enforce Loken's rule, Ignis decides to rally this big tribe of Valkyr known as the Winterscorn to just go on this conquering, destructive war here. And it takes the power of the dragon aspects and Tyr and his friends in order to drive these guys back here. And the yes, the Winterscorn were actually enslaving proto-drakes to use as mounts and beasts of burden. So that really got the dragon aspects all fired up there. They were really motivated to join the battle when they realized that their kin are being enslaved. And that says, much as they had done in their fight against Galakrond, the aspects worked in unison to overwhelm the Vykrul army. Alexstrasza held the Winterscorn at bay with towering walls of enchanted fire. Malagos drained the magical essence that fueled the constructs and golems, rendering them useless. He also shattered the enchanted snares that bound the proto-dragons and set the beasts free. Neltharion raised mountains from the earth to corral and contain the Vykrul and their giant masters. Lastly, Ysera and Naznormu combined their powers to create a spell that would bring a decisive end to the conflict. So again, like much of what happens is these guys get put into a big hibernation, which is essentially for them getting sent to the corner to think about what they've done. That's kind of what happens here, because it wasn't just them. They had a bunch of what was the Ignis card do? He forges things. This guy and his partner were forging massive golems, like kind of like the Molten Giant card almost, who were reinforcing the armies and making them more destructive than it would have just been a bunch of raiding Vikings on their own. But after this, Tyr and friends decided that the way that they need to stand against Loken is they need to go and steal those discs of Norganon, the record that they can show people hey, this is what really happened here. By the way, at this point, Loken has tried to alter things so that rather than Odin being Prime Designate, he is Prime Designate. So he's doing revisionist history, trying to say, hey, I was in charge this whole time. Although Odin himself is actually also guilty of revisionist history, because there are writings that we have found of decrees from him in game where he is basically he gets the blame for retcons essentially. For example, why did we not know about the Shadowlands stuff beforehand? Well, apparently it was because Odin decided that all records must be struck of anything that did not put the Titans as the pinnacle of creation, because it would be too confusing for the mortal races. So we'll just have a nice streamlined revisionist history that puts us and the Titans at the top of everything. So yeah, Odin is far from blameless in this too, but Loken's taking it, for much darker purposes. And so Tyr essentially decides that we're going to have this big heist, and they do manage to get away with the discs, but Loken absolutely panics, because this is the exact sort of thing that he's been trying to avoid the whole time. So he wakes up these massive old god minions known as Cathraxi to pursue them. Let's see. What's the name of the card? That warlock one that came out with Titans. We have the special signature version of it from the reward track. It costs less for damage you've taken. What's that one called?
Oh,
I'm looking. Death Knight, Demon Hunter, Druid. Come on. What's Warlock? Is this going to be at the bottom? Is this alphabetical? Yes, here we go. Imprisoned Horror?
Yes, Imprisoned Horror. So the art on Imprisoned Horror is essentially the Cathraxi thing that we're talking about here. We're talking massive generals of old god armies.
Its flavor text just says "Prison changed Jeff."
I love Hearthstone flavor text so much. And so
Jeff.
essentially, You have these massive, powerful old god minions who are pursuing Tyr and his friends and the other Titan Forged who are retreating with them down south. And Tyr decides to sacrifice himself to hold off these enemies so that everyone else can escape. He literally unleashes his entire life force to be able to overwhelm them, and even that doesn't kill them. It just kind of puts them in a comatose state. So the other Titan Forge bury them where they stand. This actually ends up attracting different magical energies to the areas where Tyr and his noble spirit lie become known as see. It says Goldshire, and then the areas where the dark energies coalesce around the old god minions become known as Darkshire. So, like two neighboring areas with very different energies right there. And Tyr's silver hand is placed on top of his grave as this big monument, as an ode to his sacrifice and selflessness. It is this silver hand that will later lend its name to the Silver Hand Order of Paladins. So every time you use a hero power as a paladin, you are invoking something originating from a Titan Keeper, which is just this really cool tieback, I think. And it is, yep, I think about this time that humans will come into play, because at this point we have the curse of flesh taking its toll here. So back when Loken was doing all his work for Yogg-Saron unknowingly, Yogg-Saron tainted the Forge of Wills, the thing that's creating more Titan Forged, with the idea that if I can turn these these warriors of stone and metal into flesh, they'll die a lot more easily and they won't be such a threat. This even happens where when they come in contact with other Titan Forged, the curse still spreads to them. Like this is far worse than any strain of COVID that has ever existed or will exist. This is literally, you get a Titan Forged with the curse of flesh in it, they just shake hands with another one, instantly passes over. And is going to spread to whole populations, which is how you get even like the Tolvir and Mogu far in the south. They just get like some emissaries from the north who meet and say hi. Curse of Flesh just spreads all over there. And so for the Vike rule, it's getting even worse because they're kind of devolving in a sense. They're getting like smaller and runtier, and some of the Vicrul are simply saying, we need to kill all, we need to purge ourselves. But thankfully, the moms and a few of the other more decently minded Vicrul were like, we can't do that. We can't kill our kids just because they're short. And so they actually run away, and these are the ancestors of humanity. Humans are descended from the stone Vikings who were crafted by the Titans. So that is our ancestry within the Warcraft lore. And that has been a lot for us to chew on. My voice is getting a little tired here. So what do you say we have intermission?
But before we do, I want to quote Bender from Futurama when I say, "Hey, baby, want to kill all humans?"
Oh. Well, before we start our intermission song, let's give away some more cards.
Let's do it.
Yeah, buddy.
Do it now.
So Blizzard Entertainment has given us some bundles to give away. Caverns of Time, 40 cards. So if you would like to participate, as soon as we are ready, we are going to be able to, in chat, if you say !ticket or !ticket space one, you will get your one entry into the draw for 40 Caverns of Time packs.
Tickets,
courtesy
please.
of Blizzard Entertainment.
Yeah. And we will pick the winner after we listen to this awesome song that I've not heard yet from Goliath the Dwarf. Really excited to hear it. We do have some more to give away, so stay tuned later for that. So those of you who are not watching this live, there are other opportunities, probably in the Discord and maybe somewhere else. We'll figure it out. But for now, yeah, hit !ticket or !ticket space 1 in the chat here on Twitch for a chance to enter. All right, here's the song. If you can't hear it, let me know, but it should play just fine.
Dawn of time, void and light, locked in an eternal fight. Big bang, dark beyond, life begins to seed. Armored through world soul knows that he can't be alone. Cosmic journey, titans waken, my how much you grow. Asgaroth, Theanar, Golganath, Agramon, Organon, Pantheon, Armatus is non-canon, Sargeras is the fallen king, but used to be the champion. Argus, Twisted Soul, Demon, Resurrection, Hold. This is the tale of titans. They've been out there searching since the world's returning. This is the tale of titans. Void and fell, they fight it for an ordered climate. Azeroth, the sleeping titan, elemental lords of fighting fire, earth, water, air. All gods invade from nowhere, blackened by a titan keepers forged to fight the evil creatures. Yashu, Rush, dies torn up in the air. Arden, Cadus, Ron, Thorum, Freda, Mimiron, and Odin, Hodil, Lokin, and Tyr make the old gods disappear. Unoa, forge of wheels, giant shape the seas and hills. Wild gods, emerald dream, well of eternity. This is the tale of titans, and they forge the keepers to combat the creepers. This is the tale of titans, from stone and metal forged, and then they all transformed. Yasuran, curse of flesh, Loken makes a great big mess. By cruel mechanomes, Kovir call all doom home. Earth in Anubis sad, stone invoke the Mogu's wrath. Galakron, aspects fight, children of the dragonflies. Burning Legion, Titan slain, life exterminate campaign. Ronda Press, Thunder King, Major Mogu power swing. Halls of Valor, Winter Scorn, High Disc of Norganon. Silver Hand, sacrifice, human race will soon arise. This is the tale of titans, and now their forms were shattered and their essence scattered. This is the tale of titans. Now Sargeras hunting for some dark corrupted. But then transform into dwarves, build the city Iron Forge. Origins of mystery, obsessed with Titan history. Alliance forms along with Horde. Now there's leaks to just explore. Encourage, try not hammer, let's return to Ulduar. Keep us free, y'all down with fervor. Agalum, the Star Observer, third invasion, all unite for Azeroth, we all must fight. This is a tale of titans, and our legions burning as the battle's turning. This is the tale of titans, and they must return or else the world will burn now. Demon hunters, Illidan, Keeper Odin's back again. Helia, Valishar, now to Argus, Burning Star. Burning Throne, Titans free from brainwashing to new dark creed. Re-empowered, now they strike this fell crusade will end tonight. Legion guns, Sargeras found, celebrations all around. Final stab and despite, world is bleeding Azurite. Primus in the Shadowlands, imprisoned at the jailer's hands. New expanding cosmic lore, I can't take it anymore. This is the tale of titans, and now the mortals free them. Who knows when we'll see them? This is the tale of titans, and when we are gone, they will live on and 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 on. This is a tale of titans. At the mighty power, all their foes will cower. This is the tale of titans. Azeroth is next, and so we must protect her. This is the tale of titans. At the mighty power, all the foes will cower. This is the tale of titans. Azeroth is next, and so we must protect.
Oh, that was awesome.
That one is the most effort I've had to put into writing a single one so far, I think.
Yeah, because a lot of songs are just verse, chorus, verse, and this does that too. But it's so many more words that you need to do, because the real song doesn't just repeat itself, right? Like it's doing a timeline, and so you're doing the same thing. It's something new, like throughout the whole thing, and it's a lot. It's a lot of lyrics to come up with, and I thought you did amazing.
Thank you. The other additional challenge for that one in particular was that I not only do you have to find the right events and be able to make things relatively rhyme at the same beat as the song, but I couldn't help but like putting in words that had more syllables than the other ones. So that's a lot of things you're getting out in one breath there. I had to do numerous takes actually.
I bet.
But I'm happy with the results. I'm glad everyone seemed to enjoy it.
I had to do many takes with much simpler songs.
Yes.
All right, I warp speed got it up on the website while we were playing that, so it's on there right now. You can download it right now.
That's for you, Taylor.
BornToBeWildHS.com.
/parody-songs.
That is We Didn't Start the Fire by Billy Joel, right?
Correct.
Nice. Okay. I love it. Very good. Well, do we have a winner for our contest?
All right, and Aramorn has won the giveaway.
Congratulations,
Aramorn.
Let's go.
Aramorn.
Well done, Ari Morn. You get 40. I was going to say Titans packs. Caverns of Time packs. Super cool. That's awesome. I love, because as wild players, these card packs are kind of important, and if you can get one of these bundles, especially in a contest, it's pretty sweet.
I have been so torn between whether spending my gold on Titans packs or Caverns of Times packs. So hard to decide. So we'll talk about the Caverns of Time in a future episode, hopefully within the next week or so, if things work out well. But in the meantime, we have to cap off this story right here. And if you're paying attention to the song, you got some spoilers about what we're going to talk about in this second half here. So where we last left off, we have the Titan spirits, who are kind of dead, kind of not dead. It's frankly rather confusing their exact state of things. But at least part of them has kind of fused with the Titan Keepers, and they're all really confused about this. However, Ra, or Ra-Den, as he's sometimes referred to, way down in the south, he actually figures out that was kind of like the last remnants of the Titans. And the Titans are not around anymore. And he becomes really, really depressed. Like you thought Thor was depressed after his wife died and he goes off and sits in a mountain. Ra becomes borderline nihilistic, that there's literally no point. The corruption will just win and take over. Why bother fighting anything? And his loyal Mogu are holding out for generations. They're like, oh, Ra hasn't shown up for a really, really long time. Like, great-great-grandfather, whatever. We don't remember this guy. Because remember, now they're beings of flesh. The curse of flesh has taken over. So you are having generations that are being born and dying and whatnot. So there's many of the Mogu who have never seen Ra at all. He's basically a legend to them. But you have this one Mogu named Lei Shen, who is convinced, he has like the utmost faith in Ra that he's working on some special plan. There's an ultimate purpose behind his absence that will lead everything. And he goes out on like this great search and pilgrimage to find Ra. And he is very disappointed that it turns out that no, Ra is just given up. And Ra tries to reveal all of this to Lei Shen, and in order to convince him that, yeah, you should just accept your fate and give up as well. But it has the entire opposite effect on him. Lei Shen comes to the conclusion that, well, if you're not going to do anything about it, you don't deserve this power. So I'm going to take it. So he literally manages to overpower Ra and rips his heart out
and like consumes the Titan power that he had and becomes known as the Thunder King. He forms this massive Mogu empire that dominates the southern area of the world that will eventually become known as Pandaria. And this empire lasts for a really, really long time, enslaving lots of other races, including the Pandaren, the Hosen, the Jinyu, the Yongle, pretty much any race in Pandaria that is you can find nowadays that is not a Mogu was enslaved by the Mogu at some point through the empire that Lei Shin got started here. Now, how does a guy like that die? Because he was functionally immortal, actually, with having Titan power in him. Well, what happened was that he learned about the Forge of Origination and is like, hey, I'm like the heir to the Titan's power. That rightfully belongs to me. And so he's calling over the Tolvir who are manning that forge and guarding it and whatnot. And he invites them over to his empire, and they are appalled by like the slavery conditions that he's keeping everybody in. This is just horrible. And he's demanding that they hand over the power, but they don't want to do it. Even though he's initially cordial, like, "Hey, Titan Forge cousins, come on over. I'm sure you're going to serve me, but you're better than all these other creatures and whatnot." But since they refuse to hand it over, he's determined to take it by force. So he leads a massive army to go and seize the forge. So what they managed to do is so that in Old Doom, so Old Doom is a massive desert right now, but it wasn't always like that. It was initially a very lush area. But in order to defend themselves from the massive Mogu army, and not only Mogu, but also the Zandalari trolls had formed an alliance with the Mogu. It's for mutual, we'll conquer the world and divvy it up between us type of thing. So you have this unstoppable army that's coming at them. What do? They activate the Forge of Origination, but they tinker with it a little bit. So it doesn't wipe out all life on the planet. It just wipes out all life in the immediate area. So when the Tolvir activate it, it completely decimates Lei Shen, his Mogu forces, his Zandalari allies, who were the only ones who knew the way to bring him back to life. So the Thunder King isn't coming back anytime soon. But that also is what turns Old Doom into a massive desert because, again, all life is wiped clean from it. There's no jungles there anymore. And that's why you get all the Egyptian-looking stuff, like the big pyramids in the middle of the desert right there. So that is all there is for a lot of Titan Forge-related lore for quite some time, until eventually, many centuries and millennia later, the dwarves and gnomes awaken. You may remember that there were several Titan Forge that retreated down with Tyrion friends as, to get away from the tyranny of Loken up in the north. Well, in order to try to stave off the curse of flesh, again, we have that what many of them end up doing is having themselves put into a stasis, into a hibernation, in the hopes that, it's the cryogenic argument where you say, okay, we don't have a solution for this now, but if you can just keep us in a stasis, maybe by the time we wake up, there'll be a cure for the curse of flesh. And there isn't by the time they end up. The mechanomes are actually kind of running the place, but they eventually break down or succumb to the curse of flesh and get old and die until there's only one left who realizes that she's the last one around, and so she goes, all the earthen will be in stasis all alone, and she can't bear that thought of them just being alone and forgotten. So right before she passes from old age, she manages to free them, wake them up, and the earthen, who they'll now call themselves dwarves, as they are now creatures of flesh and blood, are like really groggy at being woken up, so they don't remember very much. They just almost sleepwalk out into the snow out there and see these mountains that look just perfect to forge a city in, and that is where the realm of Cosmodon and the city of Ironforge are eventually made. They don't remember very much, and the gnomes even less, because the gnomes have almost no sense of history. They are very much about the here and now or the development towards the future. They don't keep historical records. They only preserve things related to scientific advancements because they're very future minded, which is the canon way of explaining why there is very little gnome lore, because they themselves don't really care about their lore.
They don't gnome?
No, they don't gnome. They don't gnome and they don't care. But eventually, the gnomes and dwarves will meet up again, like having no idea of their shared ancestry, except like, hey, I'm short, you're short, we should get along. And they actually become like very good allies and such. The dwarves help the gnomes to build the city of Nomergon, also in the region of Dunmoreau, which is where Cosmodon is located. This beautiful snowy area that is your starting zone if you choose to start playing World of Warcraft as a dwarf or a gnome. You will be in that general region. They're all working together, and that is the kind of the basics until eventually later on, after the alliance is formed, they end up joining there because they've at some point enter trade with the growing human civilizations, and all of that tends to work out quite well for them. And then of course the Titans are kind of lost from the memory of these creatures mostly, but they're still they feel that there's some sort of connection, and the dwarves become obsessed with archaeology, with discovering their connections to the Titans, and every time they have they end up finding some sort of new artifact or ruin that's connected with their things, they get really excited. King Magni Bronzebeard just actually had them basically switch their operations from focusing on mining for riches all the time to mining for knowledge and history, which is one reason why Magni is really, really cool in my book. And this is why you get the League of Explorers being founded, which of course has given rise to some of our favorite characters in Hearthstone. It started out as like a dwarf exclusive thing, but then eventually, other races joined in, and it went from finding the Titans stuff to more general archaeology, but that's always kind of been the major focus. And going back to the original comments about the Staff of Origination in our League of Explorers solo adventure, that is a Titan artifact. That's exactly the sort of thing that they're always looking for. And now we finally get to some content in the actual game of World of Warcraft. So this stuff will be relatively brief here. We have a dungeon that takes place in Uldaman. This is the place where the Trogs were initially put in stasis. It's also where Arden Cadis found a spot to expand and put the stolen discs of Norcanon, the big memory stuff. And that is essentially a dungeon that you can clear out, and is one of the first things that is like, it's some of the first lore chronologically in terms of World of Warcraft of learning who these Titan things are. You learn much more, that sort of thing, as expansions progress, but this is one of the earlier things there. And then, of course, you have the great raid of Ulduar from the Wrath of the Lich King expansion. That is the one where we meet most of these Titan Keepers for the first time, and we end up, getting Thorm out of his stupor. We end up releasing the hold that Yogg-Saron has on all of them. Loken is a dungeon boss, and but because Loken was able to have himself reprogrammed as Prime Designate, he actually has a kill switch on himself, where when he dies, it sends a message to Algalon that the Forge of Origination needs to be reactivated. And so that's why if you do the raid Ulduar on the hardest difficulty, Yogg-Saron is not the final boss. Algalon is like a secret boss after that, where you're essentially fighting for to convince him that we
Don't blow
want
up
to
the
live.
planet.
Yes.
That's
Essentially,
cool. That's really
that is
neat.
what convinces him, the idea that, wow, it never occurred to me that these creatures might actually just really want to live. And he still thinks that it's probably a lost cause, but that they deserve to have a stake in their own fate and to be able to try to defend. Like, they probably won't be able to do it, but they deserve to have a shot, is essentially what Algalon is convinced of. So yeah, that is all. It's one of the most iconic raids in World of Warcraft. That's also where we get like the Flame Leviathan, which is all the way back that mage legendary in Goblins versus
PvG.
Gnomes.
Yeah,
Yep,
yeah,
but which has been retooled a little bit for the Caverns of Time, actually,
Yeah.
as we speak.
yeah. They made it better.
Yes, it's actually, yeah, it's not just you draw it. It does some other stuff now, but and then in the Cataclysm expansion, that's when we as players see Old Zoom for the first time and have some encounters in the Forge of Origination. There's actually a couple of other more minor Titan Watchers who are in there. There is, and they kind of look like Egyptian gods. If you remember the what's that one card that we have right now that you can forge it and it will heal you and give like a holy spell or something? Do you remember let's see, which one is that?
I don't know. Hold on, let me look it up.
That one's lost on me.
It's a neutral.
Oh, it's a troll.
Yeah, it's a neutral card. Man, I wish that we could have thought of that joke from that back when Rastakhan's Rumble was a thing.
Wait,
Yeah.
sorry. What does it do? What does it do?
Let's see. It's a forge card, and it can heal you. I think it's like Watcher of the Sun or something along those lines. And I think it gives like
What class?
it's neutral.
Oh, it's neutral.
Yeah. Watcher of the Sun.
Yeah, that's it. Watcher of the Sun.
Battle cry, get a random holy spell. Forge also restores 6 health to your hero.
Yes, that's it. That's it. So that's actually based off of a Titan Forge that you can encounter, and so is the like the Mirage card from Saviors of Old Doom, the one that's like the big taunt that will just like shuffle itself back into the deck at the start of your next turn. Those are ones inspired by Titan Forge that you will find in these particular dungeons. And that is essentially the extent of Titan interaction that we have for most of the game up until the Legion expansion. Because at this point, the Burning Legion has finally made it to Azeroth after the 10,000 years after the War of Ancients when they were kicked out. And this is one where now it's the quest to find the Pillars of Creation in order to seal off their portals, that stuff that the Titans used to shape the world so long ago. This is also where we meet Odin for the first time in-game and actually go on this big quest down into Helya's realm. We can actually fight her in a dungeon and a raid. And when we kill her, then her spell over Odin is gone, and he's able to come down to Azeroth again. And his Valajar armies are able to help us stave off the Burning Legion demons. And he says that it's been a long time since he's been to Ulduar, so he wants to visit his family there. And we haven't had a continuation of that particular storyline yet, which I am very curious to see picked up at some future expansion. Then we have Argus, who is a Titan that we haven't quite talked about yet, but Argus was found by Sargeras and his Burning Legion, and it had two benefits for him. One was that there was this race on it called the Eridar, who were very intelligent, very magically inclined, very powerful, and he managed to corrupt most of them to join as like the most powerful senior members of the Burning Legion. The ones who didn't fled and are now known as the Draenei. So every time you play a card like Prophet Velen or the new one Yuri or Zarella or any of those ones, that is where they came from. They're essentially cousins with
demons, because they managed to fly away and not get corrupted, but a lot of their kin did. But what Sargeras was really after was the Titan World Soul in Argus that he used essentially as a battery, as a way of speeding up the resurrection that demons have, because demons can only truly be killed if they're killed in the Twisting Nether. Otherwise, they just kind of reconstitute themselves in the Twisting Nether, but it takes a really long time.
They respawn?
Yes, they respawn. They respawn lore-wise. The same happens with elementals if you kill them outside the elemental planes. But so what Sargeras did with Argus was he used the power of the Titan World Soul to speed up the respawning timer on the demons so that it was like his army was truly endless and unkillable. And it is at this point in the Legion expansion where we have Illidan and his demon hunters, his Illidari, managed to get this special thing called the Sargonite Keystone that can open a key to all worlds in the universe. And they use it to open a portal right to Argus so they can attack the Legion right in their home base and stop their ability to just like respawn their army endlessly so they can be truly killed. This is where we learn about the World Soul of Argus and its purpose. And it turns out that this also has Shadowlands connections because the Nathrazim, the Dreadlords, all of this time, you may remember that they actually have origins of working for Sire Denathrius, and they actually had ulterior motives because all of this stuff is infusing Argus with death magic. So when he is finally killed at the end of a big raid that we have called Antorus the Burning Throne, which finalized Legion expansion and ended up with Sargeras being imprisoned, with Illidan as his jailer, by the way. So that's where Illidan is right now. It's Sargeras, his crusade ends because so all this time he was kind of gathering up bits of the Titan spirit to reconstitute them and trying to corrupt them into a dark pantheon that agreed with his ideals. And so that's another goal of the raid, is that you have to save them. But once they are freed, they're able to kind of draw on the power of Argus to finally imprison Sargeras in the seat of the pantheon right there. But when Argus dies, his soul doesn't go to like the afterlife that's supposed to be for Titans. It goes into the Shadowlands where mortal souls are supposed to go, and that plays a big role in like the jailer's plans in the Shadowlands, which is a whole other thing that we don't have time for. But so that is that covers the basics of the Titans, because after they've kind of that they're saved, they're there, but they need to regain the power. They're just kind of off somewhere in the Great Dark Beyond. We don't really know what's going on with them. The one thing that Sargeras managed to do as he was being captured was he did one last big stab deep into Azeroth, and Azeroth's blood started bubbling up and created this super powerful substance called Azerite, and fighting over this Azerite is the main storyline of the expansion Battle for Azeroth. You also have a few other Titan things that are going on in Battle for Azeroth. There's the discovery of this Titan Watcher facility on the island of Zandalar that is called Uldir, where they were essentially trying to study the old gods way back when to try to figure out how to defeat them. But unfortunately, the experiments, the corruption they were studying kind of became sentient, and they accidentally made a test tube old god named Gahoon. So yes, they while trying to stop the old gods, the Titan Keepers accidentally created kind of a fake old god who's just like all about corruption and rot, but is still very, very dangerous. And so that is a big raid that you encounter in the Battle for Azeroth content. The last thing that we have chronologically, aside from things that we've had in the recent Dragonflight expansion, we've been kind of learning about more like Tyr's friendship with the dragons, but nothing really relevant in terms of the chronological story, is in the fight against N'Zoth. Because N'Zoth and his old god realm of Ny'alotha are trying to consume Azeroth.
You recruit the help of Ra, actually, finally kind of waking him up from his stupor a little bit, give him some sense of purpose. There's also a really nice Titan forged lady by the name of Mother. It's like Mother with like periods in between, like it's an acronym essentially. And she's really good at helping stave off corruption too. And they help to fight against N'Zoth. But unfortunately for Ra, like he doesn't have a happy ending here because he gets pulled into Nyalotha and N'Zoth just kind of overwhelms and he finally gives in to his nihilism and despair. And so he's actually a raid boss. So Ra's story unfortunately ends with us killing him because he just becomes a minion of N'Zoth in Nyalotha.
Oh, wow.
Which is kind of a downer to end on, but that is the latest of any chronological Titan lore that we have thus far.
So now, Titans, yeah. you said that they're just gone right now?
Yes, they're off elsewhere in the universe, coalescing the power or working on who knows what. Now, there are some theories within the lore community, and some of this I think has been like suggested by some of the developers at times, even that it's entirely possible that at some point the Titans might not be on our side because they have their own goals.
Yeah.
And so far, those have always been aligned with the goals of all the living things on Azeroth, but they are very fixated on order. And it's entirely possible that you could have like splits in the Pantheon with some of them deciding to fight for humanity and others against it for whatever reason. So we have no idea when we're going to see the Titans next.
There should be another new expansion where they come back and it's called Remember the Titans.
Yeah, I'm sure that Wrath of the Titans is trademarked. So, yeah, the story could go anywhere. And there's all these other cosmic things like Void Lords and, various other things that we could end up having to fight at some point in the future. We just don't know. But the story of the Titans is not over. But this is all that we know for now, which is quite a bit. We spent quite a bit of time talking about this, but all stories have to come to an end at some point.
There you go. Nate's got the the graphic up on the screen there.
Oh, love it. Wow.
Thank you so much. That's so much information. I mean, Titans are a bunch of big people, so they got a big story.
Oh, yes. And now, every time that we have to harken back to the Titans in future lore episodes, you have all of this that you can go back to that provides the framework, and we won't have to repeat it over and over.
Nice. It's so cool. Yeah. It's nice to hear about some that we haven't heard of before. I like hearing about Sargeras in particular, and yeah, what a treat. Thank you so much, Goliath. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
If anybody wants to take a look at some point in the future at the slides, we have a lot of these images and everything in the show notes. Then you can access those on our site, so you can always take a look.
Yeah, they'll be linked on the YouTube and linked on the website and stuff too. So yeah, if you want to see the images and you only listen to the audio, if you check out the show notes, they'll be in that as well.
Well, thank you once again, Goliath the Dwarf. You are always welcome, and we're excited to get into even in the future. We got to talk some Caverns of Time lore.
Yeah, right? We got to talk Caverns of Time. We got to talk Infinite Dragonflight. We've got to talk Cthulhu and finish up our 4-part Old Gods series because it's been a bit.
Yeah, no, it totally has.